As I stepped into the dense wilderness of whispering pines, a shiver coursed through my spine. The towering trees seemed to lean in conspiratorially, their rustling leaves whispering secrets of the unknown. My heart raced with both excitement and trepidation as I set up my campsite near a babbling brook, the gurgling water offering some comfort against the eerie silence that enveloped the forest. Nightfall arrived, bringing with it a chill that sent a shiver down my spine. The crackling fire provided little solace against the overwhelming darkness that surrounded me. Every now and then, I thought I heard faint footsteps echoing through the woods, but each time I turned, nothing was there. My tent became my fortress, a flimsy barrier against the unseen horrors that my imagination conjured. I tried to dismiss the unease as mere jitters, attributing the sounds to the wind or the nocturnal creatures prowling nearby. But then, just as I was drifting into an uneasy sleep, I heard it, a soft, distant whispering that seemed to echo through the trees. My heart raced as I strained to listen. The whispers were hushed and indistinct, yet they carried an undeniable air of malevolence. Panic gripped me, and I zipped up my sleeping bag, clutching my flashlight like a lifeline. The whispering persisted, growing louder and more insistent, as if drawing closer to my campsite. Terror kept me paralyzed for what felt like an eternity. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes were scrutinizing my every move. The moon cast eerie shadows that danced around the trees, adding to the surreal nature of the night. And then, as abruptly as it began, the whispering ceased. The forest fell silent once again, leaving me with a lingering sense of dread. I was torn between the desire to flee and the hope that daylight would banish the shadows that plagued me. Exhaustion eventually won out, and I drifted into an uneasy slumber. The first rays of dawn brought a mixture of relief and dread. I emerged from my tent, scanning the surroundings for any signs of the previous night's horror. The brook still gurgled. The trees stood tall, and the forest seemed to have returned to its tranquil state. Had it all been a figment of my imagination? The lingering unease told me otherwise. As I packed up my campsite, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was leaving with an unspoken promise. A promise that whispering pines held more secrets, more terrors, that were waiting to be unearthed. I vowed to never return, to keep the haunting whispers and unsettling shadows firmly in the realm of memory. Years have passed since that fateful night. Yet, the memory remains etched in my mind. I've never been able to fully shake off the feeling that Whispering Pines is a place where reality and the supernatural collide. Even now, as I recount my experience, I can't help but cast a wary glance at the shadows, half expecting the haunting whispers to return and remind me that some horrors are best left undisturbed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the dense forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. My friends and I had embarked on a seemingly idyllic camping trip deep in the heart of the wilderness, far away from the chaos of the city. The sense of isolation was simultaneously exhilarating and unsettling. Our campsite was nestled beside a serene lake, the water reflecting the silvery moonlight. We laughed and told stories around the crackling campfire, attempting to drown out the unease that seemed to hang in the air. But the woods had a way of making even the bravest souls question their courage. On the second night, a chilling breeze rustled the leaves and seemed to carry whispers that danced just beyond our hearing range. The forest had become alive with eerie murmurs, as though the trees themselves were sharing secrets in hushed tones. Our laughter grew forced, and we exchanged uneasy glances. In the dead of night, I awoke to a sound that clawed at my heart. An echoing wail that seemed to come from the very depths of the woods. My heartbeat quickened as I lay there, paralyzed by fear, unable to shake the feeling that eyes were watching me from the shadows. I tried to convince myself it was just an animal, but my rationality was no match for the creeping dread. As the days wore on, our camaraderie began to fray under the weight of the encroaching darkness. One by one, my friends would disappear into the woods, drawn by an unseen force. Their laughter faded into the distance, leaving me alone by the dwindling fire. Every attempt to follow their paths was met with a sense of disorientation and a gnawing fear that I was being toyed with by an ancient force. I struggled to sleep, haunted by nightmares that blurred the line between reality and illusion. In these dreams, I was pursued by shadowy figures with eyes that glowed like embers. They whispered promises of knowledge and power, urging me to join them in the depths of the forest. As the final night approached, the air grew thick with anticipation. The lake's calm surface rippled with an unsettling energy, and the moon cast twisted shadows that seemed to writhe and shift on their own accord. I huddled by the fire, my last beacon of warmth and light, my heart racing in time with the unsettling rhythm of the woods. And then they came. My friends emerged from the darkness, their faces contorted into grotesque masks, their eyes hollow and void of life. The whispering voices swirled around me, beckoning me to join their macabre dance. Fear and fascination clashed within me as I stood on the precipice of a choice that would seal my fate. With a surge of determination, I swung open the bedroom door and charged into the hallway, bat raised high. The whispers grew frantic, their cadence a dissonant symphony of dread. But as I reached the staircase, the house fell silent, the voices fading into nothingness. As dawn broke, I stumbled upon a trail that led me out of the woods and back to civilization. Looking back, I could see nothing but the ordinary, innocent trees. My friends were never found, and the memories of that cursed camping trip remain etched into my mind, a reminder that the wilderness holds secrets darker than the night itself. We began setting up our campsite for the night. The crackling of the campfire and the distant hoots of owls added an eerie ambience to the surroundings. My friends and I exchanged nervous glances, a mixture of excitement and unease settling in. We had chosen a remote spot, far from civilization, to truly immerse ourselves in nature. The woods seemed alive with rustling leaves and distant whispers. As darkness enveloped us, the feeling of isolation grew more palpable. Around the fire, we shared ghost stories to lighten the mood, but even the bravest among us felt a shiver down their spines. The wind seemed to carry faint voices, a chorus of eerie murmurs that we dismissed as imagination. The night wore on, and we retreated into our tents. The forest was alive with nocturnal creatures, their calls and movements echoing through the darkness. Just as I began to drift off to sleep, a chilling scream pierced the air. Heart-pounding, I unzipped my tent and peered outside, only to find nothing but trees swaying in the breeze. An unsettling feeling settled in the pit of my stomach, but exhaustion eventually overcame fear, and I drifted into an uneasy slumber. Dreams were plagued by shadowy figures and distorted whispers that seemed to beckon me deeper into the woods. The following morning, we discussed the strange events of the previous night. One of our group members, usually the most fearless, confessed to waking up in the middle of the night, feeling an inexplicable dread. He claimed to have seen faint glimmers of light flitting through the trees like distant lanterns. though there was no logical explanation for their presence. Undeterred, we decided to spend another night in the same spot, hoping to debunk the eerie occurrences. As the sun set again, a palpable tension hung in the air. Our laughter felt forced, and every snap of a twig made us jump. As darkness fell, we huddled around the campfire once more, attempting to keep our nerves in check. The woods seemed different now, more sinister. The same friend who had witnessed the lights the previous night suddenly stood up, his face drained of color. He pointed towards the tree line, stammering that he saw figures moving among the shadows. I turned my gaze towards the darkness, heart pounding. At first, I saw nothing, but then I noticed faint, ethereal shapes darting between the trees. Panic spread among us as we realized we were not alone. Frantic whispers filled the night air, and we made a hasty decision to pack up and leave immediately. As we hurriedly dismantled our campsite, the forest around us seemed to close in, the trees whispering secrets we couldn't decipher. We retreated from the woods, our hearts racing, and vowed never to return to that eerie place. To this day, we still shudder when recalling those ghostly figures in the darkness, forever haunted by the chilling memories of our ill-fated camping trip. I had always been drawn to the allure of nature's solitude, so when my friend suggested a camping trip deep into the heart of Whispering Pines National Park, I jumped at the chance. The scent of pine and the promise of starlit nights were too tempting to resist. Little did I know, our adventure would take a terrifying turn. As the sun began to set, we set up camp by a tranquil riverbank. The atmosphere was peaceful, but a strange unease settled in the pit of my stomach. My friends brushed it off as pre-camping jitters, so we gathered around the fire to swap ghost stories and indulge in s'mores. That night, the forest seemed alive with whispers. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, but the murmurs grew louder and more distinct. Chills ran down my spine, and I exchanged anxious glances with my friends. The fire crackled and popped, drowning out the unsettling sounds. Eventually, exhaustion overtook my fear, and I drifted into an uneasy sleep. I awoke to a moonlit clearing, the fire now mere embers. My heart raced as I realized that my friends were nowhere to be seen. Panic gripped me, and I called out their names, my voice trembling. Only silence answered me. Fear urged me to flee, but my loyalty kept me rooted in place. Just as I was about to give in to the terror and run, a rustling came from the trees. The air grew colder, and I felt a sinister presence looming over me. Shadows danced around the edges of my vision, and the whispers returned, more insistent this time. I covered my ears, desperate to block out the sound, but it was as if the voices were inside my head. Then, from the darkness emerged my friends, their faces contorted in unnatural ways. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, and they moved towards me in a slow, deliberate manner. My heart pounded, and I stumbled backward, trying to distance myself from the haunting sight. One of them spoke, their voice a distorted mix of their own and the chilling whispers. They told me about the spirits of Whispering Pines, restless souls who were cursed to wander the forest, seeking release from their eternal torment. I could feel their desperation, their longing for freedom. The air seemed to vibrate with their pain. In that moment, I understood that I was the key to their salvation. The spirits demanded a sacrifice, a willing soul to join them in their quest for release. I was faced with an unthinkable choice: to join my friends in their spectral journey, or to try and escape the clutches of the forest. I made my decision in a rush of desperation, with a heart full of fear and determination. I ran blindly through the dark woods, the whispers echoing in my ears. The trees seemed to twist and turn, leading me in circles. Time lost all meaning as I stumbled through the night, haunted by both the spirits and my own fear. Eventually, just as dawn began to break, I burst into a small clearing. The whispers faded, replaced by the soothing sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. I collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, feeling the weight of the night's horrors lift off my shoulders. To this day, I can't shake the memory of that fateful camping trip. The shadows and whispers still haunt my dreams, a reminder that the line between the living and the supernatural is thinner than we dare to believe. And while I escape the clutches of whispering pines, I'll forever carry the chilling truth of that night deep within my soul. Subscribe for more horror stories.